Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And with me today, we have people in education. Sometimes we could call them celebrities, like a celebrity of education. So my guest today is all of the above. So I'm going to say he's a celebrity. We'll tell you more about what that means and why that is. But with me today is Jay Mitsch from Gravity Assist. And one of the things I want to tell you about Jay is how I met him, because this is just like fun for me. So we were at a convention together. We were in California, and we were working with a group of schools and out there kind of sharing what we do and who we are. However, Jay didn't look like Jay. Jay was dressed up as Spider-Man. And I was like, Spider-Man? I've just got to meet Spider-Man and hang out with Spider-Man. So if you can imagine, of all the convention booths and everybody there, and here's Jay and his business partner was there with him, and they're dressed up as these, superheroes. And I was like, okay, I want to hang out with these guys, right? So we've got to chat several times over the last couple of years. And so now I thought, how much fun to have him here and have him join us on the podcast today. So first of all, Jay, welcome. I'm gonna share a little bit about you, okay? So that people know. So first of all, if people are looking at you right now, some people see this on video, some people see it just on the audio. But if they see you, when I say that you've been in education for 25 plus years, they're gonna go, what? What is he, 12 when he started, right? So we got that. But he's been a classroom math teacher, did 5 years of teaching in Florida. And in his time in Florida, he decided it was time to do something, kind of a break from education, which he ended up still in education, but he went to Hollywood. And in Hollywood, he was telling me that we can still find some stock photos of him from when he was doing modeling and acting and commercials, and he was in a couple of different movies. So he got into the Hollywood business and what that looks like and how it is. But what kept him engaged in education was that he came home as an 11-year-old, came home from school one day with a kind of a busted science experiment that didn't go well in class, and told his dad, he said, hey, I think the whole education system is broken, right? And so what's he done? Well, he's taken his entire career now to do what? To go in and look at how do we have it become something that empowers kids instead of disempowers them. So that's really, it's just so great to see. So Jay does work with math and science. I'm going to tell you about his program called Gravity Assist, but he teaches math from lower grades all the way up through calculus. And we'll have to find out about all the science stuff he does. And he's got his own education company now, which is Gravity Assist. And it's really grounded in the belief that every student can learn. And he was sharing something with me about math, about the way math works and how we instruct math. So I'm going to have him share that with you too. So if you take a look at, as you're seeing his website, we'll have it up in the show notes. You can see he's a family man. He has a 6-year-old son. And if you can see his video, he's in California right now, and you see the surfboard behind him. So he's kind of a hip dude. So we're super, super excited, Jay, to have you here. So first of all, thanks for making your day work. I know time zones are a little crazy, but I know you're up early. I'm up a little bit later, but thanks for being here. And yeah, welcome to the podcast.
My pleasure, man. It's always good to see you. Yeah, it was really, really a fun conference to run into. So I think you made it that much better too. So we didn't know what we were expecting.
Right. Yeah, was that your first time? That was our first time too. That year, a couple of years ago. So yeah, it was a blast. So not to know what expecting, and you show up as Spider-Man. So in fact, I did see, and I was reading a little bit about your biography, your bio, right? And because when I asked you about Spider-Man and why, the costume, right? And you actually in college, you've not only been in an athlete in terms of being on the field as a soccer player, and you've coached soccer and you've worked around that a long time, but you also were a college cheerleader, which is super cool. So like the costumes were kind of a no-brainer for you. So Cheryl, let's start there. Like, what was it like for you? So here you are, you're in college, you're playing soccer, and how did you make that transition into the cheerleading at the university level?
Well, it was really funny. My soccer coach and I talked quite a bit about like my future, and we basically decided, both of us, that coaching was definitely the route I was going to take. I wasn't going to go the professional route to play, so I started training to coach. And in the process, one of my friends, I went to a small private school in Pennsylvania called Muhlenberg. And at that point, there's about 2,000 students, the whole school. But a few of my friends on the cheerleading squad were like, hey, do you want to be a stunt coordinator? And I'm like, like jumping through fire and glass and like explosions. And they're like, well, kind of not. And they basically came up to me because I guess I do have an air where I'm pretty self-deprecating, but I'm also pretty confident, and that I wouldn't have like an ego shot if I was a cheerleader. But for me, I was like, can I learn how to flip? And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to do backflips, because and then within 1 year, or within like 1 month, I was able to figure out how to do the backflips from my coach. And then my second year cheerleading, I was captain varsity cheerleading squad. So it just turned out to be one of those things where I have no problem putting myself on display and just having fun with it and enjoying it. And then from there, we had a really fun time. We recruited a few other guys, and it was the first time we had like 4 guys on our squad. And we were able to do really, really cool stuff with all the tricks and the stunts that the girls were doing. And to our credit, one of the rules that I did have was that no one hits the ground, because we were throwing these girls 20, 25 feet up in the air.
Wow.
No one hits the ground. And we made sure we made that happen through 2 years. So it just worked out to where people gravitated towards me. They knew that I would be able to handle it. And I was kind of in a transition away from soccer anyway.
Wow. That's super cool. All right. Can you still do a backflip?
I try. Speaking of when Nate, who was at the conference, we were recording something, and I tried to do one, and it didn't turn out very well. It was very, let's say, sloppy to the point where it could have been an emergency room issue. So yeah.
Okay, does that mean you broke your agreement? You let yourself hit the ground? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, face first too. It was pretty funny.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh my God! Oh, I'm so sorry. Well,
Yeah.
glad you're okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you make the transition. You're doing cheerleading. You start you're coaching soccer, which is what you were training to do, and coaching, which is in the world of teaching, right? And I think oftentimes as teachers, we're more coaches than instructors. It's just really supporting people to have them discover for themselves what's happening. What had you decide? So you did 5 years teaching in Florida. How did you decide to check out LA and get into your acting career?
Well, it's funny to say, because 2 things. One, growing up, I had an imaginary friend that my mom told me about this, and he lived in California. So that's all I knew. That's it. So that kind of, I guess, like destiny pulled me there, or at least he did. I don't know if she did. I don't even know what my imaginary friend was. I was basically teaching in classroom. I don't particularly like grading. I can tell from a student pretty quickly if they get it or they don't get it, or if they're pulling my chain, if they're not. So tests would always pile up. And I was hustling to create these lessons that all my students would enjoy. And in the process, I realized that I'm putting on a show 6 times a day for 30, 40 kids, basically 9th through 12th graders, between geometry, algebra, and algebra 2. If I can put on a show 6 times a day doing this, what's one thing where you're destined to fail? Go for it. Why not try it? You keep on telling your students to give it a shot. And I basically was like, well, if I can do the private tutoring thing, I can easily make my money in a few hours in a day, as opposed to 13 hours and no grading. Then let's give it a shot. And I was 25 at the time, 27 at the time. So at that point, it was just one of those things where, like, I could be here for 30 years, or I can go and come back, or let's just see what happens. And I went to a couple of classes and kind of fell in love with the acting thing. And I was like, well, that's a start. Let's just go for it then. So yeah, it was, I don't know, a young decision, but it was really pretty amazing.
That's, it is great because you went for it, right? And I think oftentimes we stop ourselves, we question ourselves. Oh, but it might turn out X, Y, or Z. Instead of, oh, let's just go and we'll see what happens. So that's cool. Okay, so do you have kind of a favorite commercial you were in, or movie spot you're in, or kind of a modeling gig? Anything really stand out for you?
Not. I should have thought about this a little bit more with that. You should have.
I didn't know I was getting.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Not really. I did. I was in the last episode of CSI Cyber. They tried to do a CSI Cyber in one season, and I was in the last scene of the last show on the first season before it got canceled. So yeah, I was
Oh,
yeah, just one line or two lines, and then just I had to hand James Vanderbeek a process. I was a process server. I had to hand him like a thing from court. So, and then that set the final scene where everything crumbles or something like that. So yeah,
oh my gosh, that's so
yeah,
cool. That's good. So you're a sleuth, right? And then now here you are coming from CSI, right? And here's Gravity Assistant. Here you are doing all the things you do. So
Mhm.
I love it. All right, so let's look at kind of like today and what today looks like, because you mentioned something really, for me is really great because about grading, right? And I am just so much about having students be willing and get interested in grading their own work, because I noticed I had the same thing happen. I started teaching back in the late 80s, and I would
Mhm.
spend, I'd spend the weekends grading the students' work, and I'd write all the notes on it. And I mean, I spend all weekend doing this, right? And I'd go
Mhm.
back, I'd hand the papers back to the kids, and I always noticed the same thing. They had this, and I could tell their body motions, right? I'd hand them their papers. They would look down at the paper. They'd look up at me. They turn the pages and kind of flip through a few things, and then they'd close the paper, they'd look back up at me and they'd put it away. And I thought, I just spent all that time and I did, all the smiley faces, and I, writing notes, and here you can do
Mhm.
it, cheer them on. I thought, this is crazy. And so I just stopped doing it after the first semester of teaching, right? And I said, look, here, I'm going to tell you where the answers are. I want you to look them up. And if you got a question, let me know. And everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed. It was, they started they started asking questions. They said, but I got this wrong. Why did I get it wrong? Instead of when I had put on the paper that they had gotten it wrong and they didn't care, now all of a sudden they did care because they were the ones looking it up. And I thought, that's amazing. So when you look at your own approach to teaching, and the way that learning can occur, and either for yourself or for young people, right? What drives you to approach teaching and learning the way that you do it?
It's funny. It's a great question. I have this deep seated thing for connection, whether it be from, child, family, or anything else. But like, I really enjoy connecting with students. I really enjoy connecting with people and information. And the math part for me has always come easy. Like and I don't know where it came from. My parents aren't necessarily math people at all. But the connection to the people and then helping them connect to their information, then that for me is really like when I see, I you probably do this now too, is that when you're working with students and you get that like there's different levels of and you realize after a while, like now you're connecting, now you're on the right track. And that for me that's the joy. And even for me, when I connect with my information or what I'm trying to do, where I start noticing the dots, and it all comes from that self-reflection, that thing you're doing with your students about the test, like being able to keep like kind of like laying a brick and then looking up, laying a brick and looking up, and really trying to make sure that the student, especially the ones that I'm working with, don't just mow through the information. Even if they slow down just 5% or whatever, I get to start seeing them actually really build the bridge, and that's really important to me. So I would say I'm just driven by connection, whether it be people, and maybe that's what even drives the costumes of like, you walk up to someone sitting in a chair at a conference, they're there. But if you walk up to someone in a superhero costume, that's something different. That's where you start getting to be, oh, this is more about who this person is as a person. Let's really talk to him. So yeah, I think the math for me is fun. I love it, but it's more the connection and the medium.
Mm. I love that. It's like we're in a relationship business. We're always building relationships. So
Mhm.
yeah, I hear you. Okay, so it's funny when you came home as an 11-year-old to tell your dad that education is broken, right? I heard a TED talk one time, and this TED talk really changed the way that I looked at what I used to say about education, because I felt like that, like the system's, it's not working, it's broken, but what he said was, is he said that that the system works really well. It's just obsolete. And,
Mhm.
and it's like we've got this, several hundred years old or even longer than that, that we've been doing what we've been doing the same way over and over again. It's almost that Einstein's, definition of insanity a little bit,
Yeah.
right? But really that it's like become obsolete. So when you look at it, there's still some things happening in education today that really work. So, when you look, like, what do you see that still is really working? Like, let's say, like in the right or wrong world, right? What do you think is still happening in education that's still right? It's still working.
Um, I it's still a people business. As much as we're going to try to automate so much of the things going on around us, it still requires like human connection. I think there's I read something in college that blew my mind, but there's like something mystical about the teacher, about the educator. So as long as we have that, I think that we have good, strong education there that's working. I love the fact that we are starting to really branch out from just the four walls classroom, public school kind of model. That's working. It's going to continue to work. Um, I think the way we're embracing technology is better now. Before it used to be like you're never going to have a calculator. Now it's like just use it. Just like it's okay. We still need you to kind of do the math facts a bit, but and then from there, um the people that are involved in education still really care. I really think in the whole, and that hasn't changed in a while. I whether or not they connect with the student the way the student needs or not, but I do still think that the people that are in the buildings that are trying their best are really, really there for the right reasons. And they're not just like kind of mailing it home.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it does lead back to people. It's great. Yeah, most teachers that when I worked with, when I first started working in education, it was like none of us sat down in the break room or at lunch, and we never had this conversation that we got into education for the money. It wasn't like that wasn't
Yeah.
a thing, right? We were in it for the kids. We were in it for just that, about building relationships. So here we are, and we can kind of see, and the pandemic has really opened up some things about the way that schools have been operating and what's happening. And in our world, personalized learning or the homeschool movement has just not that it like has come where it's like all of a sudden everybody wants to do this. It's just now that people are starting to recognize how amazing it is and what's possible in doing it. So when you see education moving forward, what are some of the things that you see as we move forward? Like what, where does education need to go? Or, I think we're kind of at the forefront of this in that we do how we work in the homeschooling world and the personalized learning world. Um, how is education going to keep up with what we're doing? Because we're kind of like we're gonna be out in the front and take the run, and we want people to come with us. But what do you think that education needs to do to keep moving forward as well?
Oh yeah. One thing that comes to mind with this is the scheduling. We don't need 3 months off anymore. This we're like the kids aren't going into the farms to help the parents. I think the more we give breaks, but we also do need some long distance kind of, or not long distance, we need a schedule where there is some regularity over a certain period of time, so we don't need that summer break anymore. I think the more we lean into the technology of connecting with the right people like you and I, or and giving kids the opportunity when students are all worried about going to college and they want to get to University of Michigan, or they want to get to Stanford or UCLA, they keep forgetting that there's so many little colleges out there and so many options where they give you the same stuff as Stanford does, because everything's connected now. If you want to study abroad in Marrakesh, it doesn't matter where you go to school, you're going to have, there's the ability to do that. When I was in college, we had like England, South of Africa, and maybe France or something like that. But now you can pretty much study abroad anywhere. So I think the more the opening of the walls of education is really key, and what we're doing even with personalized learning. I think there needs to be more of a push at the beginning with like getting the students to be more conscientious and aware and accountable to their end, because we do spoon feed pretty much for a while. But I do believe in like making sure they know how to read and write, making sure they know their math. And not for algebra. It's not about algebra. It's about logic and problem solving. And then the more I think we lean into, it's like a new school, old school thing. We still need people though. We still need really good people. So I don't know how we can recruit or get this next generation through that really wants to be in education for the right reasons. But from my standpoint, it seems like there's a lot of apathy, and hopefully from this you'll get a couple new ideas that I can't even think of or you can't even think of. So,
which is true. Yeah, it's great. And young people, they're gonna be the demand for what's next, which is great. And I see that today. I see the way that students interact today, and they live in a whole different world than I grew up in. But one of the things that I see all the time now with students is that when I ask them what they want to do in the future, it used to be you could almost categorize it into little boxes, and you kind of knew where they were going to, what they were going to do, where they're going to end up, and they were in this conversation. It's not like that today anymore. Now that young people are really looking at what they love to do and how can they take what they love to do and turn it for themselves into a career, so that it's not like they're working. There's just that way of life, and they're doing what they love to do. And I think that we're going to see that young people that have that passion for education, because it's kind of like one of those things. I think that if you're a teacher, you're born a teacher, right? And it's just in your blood, and that's just the way it's going to go. And for our young people that have that in their blood, that's kind of where they're headed, that they're going to start looking from what is it that's going to make a difference for the people in their generation and the generations coming up, which is super cool. So even saying that, it's like, like we're looking at what we call like the modern student, right? Because there's how I, my background and how I grew up way different than how it looks for young people today. So when you look at that modern student, like today's student, what would you say? What are the most important things that education should focus on for our today kind of student?
It may sound like old, but like I think fundamentals, like what especially what they're missing. I talked with this teacher the other day about her class, and they know the internet. The students know the internet, but they don't know how to research, or they don't know how to read critically, or they don't like. So going back to the fundamentals of being able to use all the tools that they have around them, but really know why those tools are there and how to use them. I work with a lot of students also that are, they know how to read a menu, and they know how to read some basic stuff on the internet. But when it came to actually having an opinion, it didn't. They didn't know how to critically understand, and they didn't know how to like at least question what they were reading or how they're reading. So going back to those fundamentals of even just carving out time where you can spend a half an hour in a book, or and feel the paper and smell the ink, and even when you're taking notes, like that whole like texture of the pen and the paper and how that all works. I think that if we can return back to that and kind of like balance it a bit more, I think that there's some really good stuff in that. And there's studies that shows and I listened to Andrew Huberman on podcasts, and this guy, the Stanford professor, dude's got all the facts. He's the man. He talked about how there's a study saying that like even just writing notes, there's something about the writing process that causes it to be remembered better. Right. So we do need to go back to some of the fundamentals and the basics, and even like some of the classics in English and literature, and with the math, we need to, bring back some of the math facts and all to help students build those rails that will help them learn the stuff in the creative ways they have, because they don't have to worry about just, I don't have a calculator, I can't think then. So
right. And and what the calculator doesn't think either. The calculator just performs,
Mm-hmm.
So That's funny. I love that because it's giving young people, like having the foundation gives them access to be able to think. Like they've got that foundation that they can then take that information and what to do with it, which is different than a calculator. Calculator is still going to be, you tell me what you want me to do and I'm going to do it, but I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm just doing what you're telling me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. But I think that's really, really, really brilliant because it does lead to, well, what can we do with that? Now we've got this foundation, that we've got these root fundamentals, and what can we take them and do with them? So if we look at that, right, and you're looking from there and kind of everything that you do and as you work with young people, what is it that you think are the important things that students should know?
Um, it's funny, you're saying that thing, like, something came to mind, and it fits perfectly. Body awareness is one. I find a lot of students, when they're trying to learn, they're super tense. They're not breathing correctly, and they're trying to do math problems like holding their breath, and they're trying to read, and they're not breathing. Having body awareness will help them actually absorb more, because a lot of times, like, they'll just constrict and they'll wonder why they're not getting a deep breath. So with that, the more we can get them to slow down and do that, that's one thing that came to mind. In the end, I think philosophy comes up with a little bit of the stoicism of being able to understand, a lot of what you're learning is to get you to the next level. So don't be so, like, be a kid, be like interested and curious. A lot of students now, they don't care to learn about something just for the sake of learning it, or what can you do with a bucket of stuff, that kind of thing. The curiosity is kind of, it's been curbed with the internet and with social media, because they're being curious pretty much all day on things that aren't necessarily supposed to be helping them. So how do you then do that? How do you get them to be more curious and then fail? I mean, how many times have you and I messed up in our lifetime where we're like, oh, that didn't work?
Yeah, many.
Right?
Count, right? Yeah.
There's such a value in that. There's such a value in messing up. There's such a value in being wrong and being okay with it, and just being like, well, all right, well, then how do we fix it? Or how do we make it better? Or, maybe we just need to shut it down and try again tomorrow or something. But having that awareness and having that care to risk to mess up, I think that's one of the bigger things. We as parents, I have a 6-year-old, so it's really hard to not just do it for him. And it's really hard to watch him screw around and mess up. But at the same time, like, I tried to fix his spelling last night because he was trying to spell butterfly. And halfway through, I'm like, no, let him, he doesn't have to know how to spell butterfly now. He's 6. He doesn't have an AP bio test tomorrow. It's okay. So
Right.
yeah, I think the modern student, they need to go back to some like good old fashioned journaling, in a sense, or good old fashioned breathing. Like the Chinese had it right for so many years, and they just need to go back to being okay with being wrong.
Yeah, I love that. Well, all right. So let's say, because, when you look at being okay with being wrong, right? It's, young people aren't born that way. Because when they're learning how to walk, they're totally fine with being wrong, because they fall down, they get back up again. They fall down, they get back up again, right? There's no
Yeah.
problem with that. And somewhere we're doing something, as the teachers, as however that looks, right? That something's getting to them, that being wrong is not okay. So when you start to look there about, it's okay to be wrong, and I love breathing. I just think, I think there's so much in that. I'm doing a fitness program right now, and one of the things in the fitness program is more about trying to lose weight more than, for me, that's my end goal, right? But what's interesting about it is that one of the things that the program says is that you have to breathe, and they're actually having us do breathing exercises every day. And I'm like, and I have no muscle with that. That's not something that's normal for me. I have to really practice, and
Yeah.
remember to do it. I have to put a reminder, schedule some time. Oh, I got to breathe now, right? So, because that's not in our conditioning to think that way. So, when you look from there, right, what are the most important things that teachers should be doing now, or what should they know now?
Yeah, that's a good one. What do teachers need to know right now? The I think they could listen more. A lot of times the students will tell them what they're thinking if you're listening. I think another thing teachers need to, especially that we didn't have to deal with in the classroom, is the phones. You really have to find a way to build the respect for them, for the student, and you have to meet them a little bit more halfway than maybe we did when we were in the classroom in like the 90s and 2000. Um, the more you build a respectful environment with that sense, with boundaries and proper consequences, and make sure that they're fair. I tried to do this when I was first year teacher, in that the class makes the rules. The class, except I learned pretty fast that that's not going to work, because well, what if you're late, right? And the kid's like,
Yeah,
well, I don't want to get in trouble, so there's no rule for us being late. And I was like,
right.
about that. So, but I think the more they can listen more to students, and try to be more open to their ideas, but then also how do you root it back into the curriculum and into fundamentals? Um, and then from there, like we're just, it's almost like we're carrying them on to the next station in life. Like we're so I've never really had an ego with that. I don't know much the teachers that do, but how do you talk to them at their level? I know a lot of schools that go, well, we're college preparatory, so we have to teach you how to be in college, and you're going to learn it this way. And the kids are like, that's not what college is. Like, it hasn't been like that in 30 years.
Right.
So, yeah. And then from there, even like, yeah, maybe try to have more fun too. I think a lot of teachers, I mean, I'm guilty of this. As you get older, you have a lot more stressors and pressure, and you want to perform on your job well. But in the end, I mean, just try to have fun with it. You're not getting paid enough. You might as well enjoy it.
Right. It's funny, as you were sharing that, it kept bringing me back to something you said earlier, right? And if you take all of the technology and all of these amazing new uh, opportunities we have for learning, which is more in the world of technology and the AI world and all these different things that are happening, and everything in with the internet and social media and all those things out there. But it all comes back to connection. Then you said that at the beginning, it's like, what is it that, that given a world where we're in a world where connection becomes less and less probable because of all the things that we have at our disposal, connection is the thing that could be the key that keeps it all together.
Mhm.
So I just, yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Now, and in the classroom, though, I get teachers, man. You have, if you're in the classroom, you have, or even if you're doing it online with students and all, you have 30 kids, 25 kids, 20 kids. You're probably only teaching about 7 to 8 minutes at a time, and maybe 20% of the class is education. The rest is just management, people
Right.
management. So having that perspective of being like, oh, how do I squeeze another 4 more minutes into the day so that I can get them to that 4 more minutes further along? And then that just comes down to like, how do I, what's the problem? How do I try fixing it? And then that's it. And then just keep trying, and know that like also the kids have bad days too. So it may all blow up on you. So it just,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I know. I think whenever I'm doing an online class and it's a, live session, something in the background for me always is I'm in competition with, with background noise. I'm in competition with social media. I'm in competition with siblings in the house. I'm in competition with dogs barking. I'm in competition with, it's a bright sunny day outside and I'm sitting here doing math when I could be outside, so
yeah.
it's, how do you connect with people so that they still get to be respected for the things that they want to be doing, and at the same time that they're engaged in what we're doing together. So it takes something, which is great. And that for me, that's always um, I wouldn't call it a challenge. I call it more like an opportunity, because the more that I can get myself so that I can learn how to connect with people, then that makes me even better at what I do, which makes the opportunity for young people even better. So, which is cool.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
In my acting world, we always talked about how there weren't any mistakes. So even in improv, if something is said or something is done, the audience sees it. The audience knows. The audience can see you seeing it and ignoring it. So you just embrace it and you go with it. So it's like a yes and kind of like philosophy. Is if something comes up, you know, if a cat jumps on someone's face in the middle of an online session, let's address it, because
Right.
yeah, that you know, in class, if somebody is doing something, or even like if somebody's sleeping, like we all see it. So let's address it, and you can do it with an empathy and care, and you don't have to just like roast the kid for being tired.
Right.
But you figure out ways to do that. But yeah, you have to embrace that, all that unexpected stuff. And the competition thing is fun because it does kind of heighten the lesson a bit, where you're like, well, I'm just going to be my best and let the cards play.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so tell us about Gravity Assist. So first of all, we'll have the website gravityassist.us in the show notes for everybody, so they can link up and see. Tell us about when people come to you. How do you serve them? And are you available to the whole? Can you take people from all over? How does that work?
Yeah, we are in person here in Los Angeles area, and then if we need to be in person somewhere else, we'll try to figure it out. I mean, we're in the problem solving business. Most people come to us usually with an issue, and we have a time that we have to take care of it. So it's not like we can just sit and be playful with it for a while. We usually get right to work, but the Gravity Assist is my third iteration at education companies. It first started off as JV Learning, and then it went to Achieve Tutorials South Bay, which I partnered up with a friend of mine. And then from there, I realized that tutorials isn't the only thing that we're interested in, by just being tutors and mentors. It's a huge important thing. And actually going back to the question of like, what do we need more in education? I think we need more mentoring than we need than anything. We need to really, really understand that mentoring world of helping students. So that's what the focus is on. Is a lot of mentoring. The education part and the academics take care of themselves, but we also have built academic programs for schools and for groups to use. And it's all from that idea of you're on your path. We're here to help accelerate you and to put you on an even better trajectory. Just like how the Voyager satellite did in 1977. They took off. There's a certain point in this interplanetary world where all the planets were lined up to where every time these satellites hit a new planet, it slingshotted them to the next one even faster. And it's really cool how like there's a documentary about it that said that as they were getting to the end of our solar system and got to like Neptune and Uranus and even Pluto, like they were wondering like, is this the last we've ever heard of this thing? And then all of a sudden blips would start coming back, and they got full-blown amazing images of Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, all those things, all because of the trajectory that was changed because of the gravity of each planet. So from that's our credo. That's what we're doing. We're trying our best to just build programs for students to help them succeed just a little bit more on their path. We're not trying to change them. We're trying to embrace them. And then from there, we have academic tutoring, all the subjects. I personally love math and science. I can do English, and I'm happy to help with all that. I know my limits in English, so I'm not going to work with someone who's going to be a writer. I'm working with someone who just needs to get an assignment done. And then we have plenty of people in place to help in Spanish, in French, in what else? Biology, history. We have a really great history teacher. And And then our academic programs are more for schools and for groups of people. They can be for individuals. We can form a group with them. But one of our tutors lives in Cambodia, and we started a foreign exchange program that's basically just for middle and high school students to share cultures and to get to know each other and to have like basically a virtual pen pal. I mean, you remember the days back you used to adopt a class and you put all the stuff in the folder and you mailed it out, and a month later it came back. Now it can happen all instantly.
Right.
It's
That's
basically
awesome.
a modern day pen pal that then ultimately has an academic focus on it, whether it be civics, whether it be history, whether it be even just understanding that, like in Cambodia, they're a communist country. They have very different rules than we do. Well, what are those rules, and how does that affect their day to day? And then we have ties in Ecuador, we have ties in Nigeria, we have ties in England, so we can build a program to help foster that international care, almost like a virtual UN. And then we have this other program called Behind the Scenes, which is all about mentoring for the entertainment industry. The lady that runs this program, she's a producer, a Broadway producer. She loves helping people see how the industry is and how their talents can exist in that industry. She was an actor in high school, but then ultimately saw her gift was producing, and that she's really good at organizing armies of people to do an amazing job for a show that everyone loves. So how do we then translate that to students who want to be in the entertainment industry but don't know and just think it's just acting and directing? Well, there's a million ways to do that, and we set them up with like photographers and camera people and lighting people and all that. And it's just a good way to explore like a career without having to go through 5, 6, 8 years of school and then realize that that's not what you want, or that is what you want and you should have been focused more in a different area. So yeah, and at the same time, and you come to us and you say, we're working with another school on academic support. Here's where our trouble is. Here's what we need. And we work with 2 schools, one school in Los Angeles and one school online. And they're very much just academic tutoring, just how to keep the kids afloat. And from there, we got a line out the door for students to come in and ask for help. So what we're doing is great. The students seem to love it. We love it. The kids are amazing working with them. It's always fun to see the different personalities.
That is awesome. Wow. And congratulations. It's like, being able to, you're international, right? Well, you should, you're a superhero. So of course, right? Well, it's really great. Well, I hope people get a chance to check out the website, gravityassist.us, find out more about Jay and the programs that he has. It's just super cool. And if you're in the LA area, just go visit in person, man. Check out what he's up to, what he's doing. All right, everyone. Well, Jay, first, thanks for making your day work to be here. This was awesome. We got to come back and do this again. This was fun. So we'll set up again. And everybody, thanks for tuning in today. And we'll see you next time on A+ Parents. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.